Late-night television was rocked when Matt Damon's promotional appearance on The Late Show turned into a heated exchange that left viewers stunned. What began as standard celebrity banter quickly escalated into one of the most uncomfortable confrontations in talk show history, as host Stephen Colbert's increasingly aggressive line of questioning pushed the A-list actor to his breaking point. The red on-air light illuminated as the familiar trumpet blasts of The Late Show theme song filled the studio. Stephen Colbert bounded onto the stage with his characteristic energy, straightening his navy suit jacket as the audience erupted in applause. His smile seemed practiced, his eyes scanning the crowd with calculated precision rather than genuine warmth. "Welcome to The Late Show, everybody. We've got a great show tonight," Colbert announced, his voice carrying that hint of smugness that had become more pronounced in recent months. "Our guest tonight is promoting his new film, The Resurgence. Please welcome Academy Award winner Matt Damon." Damon emerged from backstage with a wide smile, waving to the enthusiastic audience. He moved with easy confidence, dressed in a simple charcoal button-down and dark jeans. The two men exchanged a brief handshake before taking their seats, the space between them charged with an energy that seemed slightly off from the usual late-night camaraderie. "Matt, welcome back to the show," Colbert began, leaning forward in his chair. "It's been, 3 years since you've graced us with your presence?" "Yeah, about that," Damon nodded, settling into the guest chair. "It's good to be back, Stephen." "Is it, though?" Colbert asked, his tone shifting unexpectedly. "Because last time you were here promoting Stillwater, I recall you mentioning you'd be back very soon with another project. 3 years seems like a rather liberal interpretation of very soon, doesn't it?" The audience's nervous laughter rippled through the studio as Damon's smile faltered momentarily. "Well, you know how it goes in this business. Projects come and go, schedules change. Or perhaps some hosts get prioritized over others," Colbert pressed, his smile not reaching his eyes. "I couldn't help but notice you've made the rounds on Kimmel, Fallon, even the daytime circuit, but somehow The Late Show kept getting pushed back on your publicity tour." The cameras caught Damon's expression shifting from confusion to discomfort. "That's not really how it works, Stephen. The studio sets up these appearances and—" "Let's talk about The Resurgence," Colbert interrupted, consulting his notes with exaggerated interest. "Another action thriller where you play, surprise, a highly skilled operative with a troubled past. Quite the creative stretch for you, isn't it?" The audience's uneasy murmurs became audible as Damon straightened in his seat. "The film actually explores some interesting themes about redemption and the moral complexities of—" Yes, very profound, I'm sure," Colbert cut in again, waving his hand dismissively. "But let's be honest with our audience here. This is your 4th time playing essentially the same character? The aging action star desperate to prove he's still relevant?" The studio fell uncomfortably silent. A production assistant could be seen whispering urgently to the floor manager off camera. "Look, Stephen," Damon responded, his voice measured but tense. "I chose this role because the script was compelling. If you've seen the film—" "Oh, I've seen it," Colbert interjected with a smirk. 2 hours of my life I won't get back. But what really interests me is this ongoing feud with your former collaborator." Damon's posture stiffened visibly. "I'm not sure what you're referring to." "Come now, Matt. The industry gossip about your falling out with Christopher Nolan after he passed you over for Oppenheimer. Sources say you were, how did they put it, livid about being overlooked." "That's completely fabricated," Damon replied, his jaw tightening. "Chris and I have a great relationship. He's one of the finest directors working today." "So fine that you turned down a supporting role in his next project?" Colbert pressed, leaning forward with the intensity of a prosecutor rather than a talk show host. "Our industry sources indicate otherwise." The cameras caught Damon taking a deep breath, clearly struggling to maintain his composure. "I think your sources might need checking, Stephen. I haven't been offered a role in Chris's next film yet, so there was nothing to turn down." Interesting denial, Colbert remarked with a theatrical raise of his eyebrows. Almost as interesting as your recent comments about streaming platforms diluting the cinematic experience. Bit hypocritical coming from someone who just signed a massive deal with Netflix, wouldn't you say? The tension in the studio was palpable now. Audience members exchanged uncomfortable glances as the interview veered further from promotional banter into something more akin to an ambush. That's taking my comments completely out of context, Damon countered, color rising in his face. What I said was that certain films benefit from the theatrical experience, while others— Let's take a quick break, Colbert announced suddenly, turning to the camera with his professional smile firmly back in place. When we return, more with Matt Damon about his creative choices, his apparent industry feuds, and perhaps why his last 3 films have underperformed at the box office. As the show cut to commercial, the cameras continued rolling for a few seconds longer than they should have, capturing Damon leaning over to Colbert, his expression serious. "What the hell is going on here, Stephen?" Colbert's response was just audible before the feed cut. "Just trying to get past the usual PR nonsense. For once. Is that a problem for you?" Behind the scenes, production staff exchanged worried glances. Tonight's interview was clearly deviating from the agreed-upon talking points. The show's executive producer hurried toward the stage, but the damage was already done. Social media was lighting up with clips of the uncomfortable exchange, and the tension was only building as the commercial break ticked down to its conclusion. What would happen when the cameras started rolling again? The question hung in the air like an impending storm, with viewers at home and audience members in the studio sensing that they were witnessing the unraveling of late-night television decorum in real time. As the floor director counted down to returning from the break, both men sat in rigid silence, the facade of entertainment industry pleasantries having given way to something far more genuine and potentially explosive. The floor director's fingers counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. The on-air light flashed red again, and the cameras captured both men's tight smiles as the studio audience's applause filled the awkward silence. "Welcome back to The Late Show," Colbert announced with artificial brightness. "We're here with Matt Damon, discussing his new film, and apparently touching some nerves along the way." Damon's smile was rigid, his eyes no longer holding their earlier warmth. "Yeah, seems like we've moved beyond the usual promotional conversation. Well, Matt, that's the problem with late-night television these days, isn't it?" Colbert leaned back in his chair, loosening his tie slightly. "Everything's so scripted, so sanitized, the same rehearsed anecdotes on every show. Don't you think the audience deserves something more authentic?" "Authentic doesn't have to mean antagonistic, Stephen," Damon replied evenly, though the tension in his jaw was visible in close-up shots. "I came here to talk about a film I'm proud of, not to defend myself against baseless accusations." "Baseless?" Colbert's eyebrows shot up. "So you're claiming there's absolutely no truth to the reports that you've been difficult on set recently? Because we've had several crew members from The Resurgence reach out to our show with some rather interesting stories." A ripple of whispers moved through the audience. Damon's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's simply not true," he stated firmly. "We had a fantastic crew, and I have nothing but respect for everyone who worked on that film." "Really?" Colbert shuffled through some index cards. "Because I have a quote here from someone who worked closely with you, claiming you demanded reshoots because, and I'm quoting directly here, the lighting didn't emphasize my better side. Care to comment on that?" "That never happened," Damon said, his voice growing increasingly tense. "And I have to question why you'd bring anonymous accusations into an interview without fact-checking." "Oh, we fact-checked," Colbert countered smugly, "just as we fact-checked your charitable foundation's financial reports, which show some rather interesting allocation of funds." The studio fell dead silent. Camera operators exchanged worried glances. This was territory no pre-interview had covered. My foundation? Damon's expression shifted from irritation to genuine anger. You want to question the work we've done providing clean water to millions of people? That's where you're taking this? I'm simply pointing out that only 68% of donations go to actual programs while the rest— That's an outright lie, Damon interrupted, his voice rising. Over 90% of our funds go directly to water projects. Those numbers are publicly available and audited. Colbert shrugged with feigned innocence. Perhaps I'm misinformed. Let's move on to your political stance then. You've been quite vocal about certain issues while remaining conspicuously silent on others. In the control room, the executive producer was frantically signaling to cut to another commercial. But Colbert waved off the floor manager's attempts to catch his attention. This isn't an interview anymore, Stephen, Damon said, now visibly, struggling to maintain composure. This feels like an interrogation based on tabloid gossip. I prefer to think of it as journalism, Colbert replied with a self-satisfied smile. Something missing from most of these promotional circuits. For instance, let's discuss the real reason your longtime collaboration with Ben Affleck has cooled recently. Sources close to both of you suggest there was a significant disagreement over— Stop. Damon held up his hand. Ben is my brother, has been for over 30 years. I'm not going to sit here and let you fabricate a rift between us for ratings. Is it fabrication, though? Colbert pressed. Because your production company pulled out of 2 joint projects in the last year alone. Due to scheduling conflicts, which you would know if you'd bothered with actual research instead of whatever this is. Damon gestured vaguely toward Colbert's notes. The audience was watching in stunned silence, witnessing something rarely seen on network television, the calculated dismantling of the celebrity interview facade, revealing genuine emotion beneath. Let's take another approach then, Colbert continued, seemingly energized by Damon's increasing discomfort. Your new film touches on themes of moral compromise, something you must be familiar with, having worked with certain directors who've been implicated in— That's enough. Damon's voice was quiet but firm. He began removing his microphone. I came here as a professional to promote a film that hundreds of talented people worked very hard on. I didn't come here to have my character assassinated for whatever grudge you're nursing. Colbert's expression shifted momentarily, a flash of something like satisfaction crossing his features before he recovered his performative concern. Matt, I think you're being overly sensitive. This is just a conversation. No, this isn't a conversation, Damon replied, standing up. A conversation involves mutual respect. Whatever this is, it's something else entirely. Panicked producers rushed toward the stage as Damon unpinned his microphone and placed it carefully on the desk. The studio audience began murmuring loudly, some people standing, a few even calling out in support of Damon. Ladies and gentlemen, Colbert addressed the audience with theatrical gravity. It seems our guest isn't interested in having a substantive discussion tonight. A substantive discussion? Damon turned back, his composure cracking. You haven't asked a single genuine question about the film. Instead, you've thrown out one baseless accusation after another. You know what? I've respected your show for years, but this— He gestured between them. This isn't about entertainment or even journalism. This is about you. Colbert's smile faltered as he realized the situation was slipping from his control. The audience's sympathies were clearly shifting toward Damon, with several audible comments supporting the actor filtering through the studio. Matt, perhaps we should— Colbert began, his tone suddenly conciliatory. I think we're done here, Damon interrupted, already walking toward the exit. He paused briefly to wave at the audience, his professional instincts kicking in despite his anger. Thanks, everyone. Sorry about this. The camera caught Colbert's expression, a mixture of surprise and something that looked remarkably like panic. This wasn't how these confrontations were supposed to end. The power dynamic had shifted unexpectedly, and now he was the one left exposed under the studio lights. "We'll be right back after these messages," Colbert announced weakly as Damon disappeared backstage, the sound of thunderous applause following the actor's exit. The commercial break couldn't have come soon enough for Colbert, who yanked at his tie the moment the on-air light dimmed. The studio had erupted into a buzz of conversation, with audience members turning to each other in disbelief at what they'd just witnessed. "What the hell was that?" The executive producer stormed onto the stage, his face flushed with anger. "This isn't some tabloid ambush show, Stephen. This is The Late Show." Colbert stood up, straightening his jacket with forced composure. "I was pushing for something real for once. Are we really content being just another stop on the publicity tour, where celebrities peddle their latest projects with rehearsed anecdotes?" "That's exactly what we are," the producer hissed, keeping his voice low enough that only nearby crew could hear. "People tune in for light entertainment, not character assassination. And Matt Damon, of all people to go after? He's one of the most respected actors in Hollywood." Behind the curtain, the situation was equally tense. Damon paced in the green room, his publicist already on the phone with the network executives, while his agent fielded a flurry of messages pouring in from industry colleagues who had been watching the train wreck live. "This is completely unacceptable," the publicist was saying. "We had an agreed-upon set of talking points. Nothing in the pre-interview suggested anything like this." Damon shook his head, his anger subsiding into something more contemplative. "You know what's crazy? I actually respected Colbert. Thought he was better than this." Back on stage, Colbert was facing a mutiny among his own staff. The head writer had joined the executive producer, both of them gesturing angrily. "We have 4 minutes until we're back on air," the floor manager announced, looking nervously between Colbert and the producers. "Who's the backup guest?" the executive producer asked. "There isn't one," the stage manager replied. "We're scheduled to go right into the musical performance after Matt's segment." Colbert ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of genuine stress breaking through his composed facade. "I'll handle it. I can salvage this." "You've done enough," the producer countered. "We're cutting to the musical guest early and extending their set." Social media was already exploding. Clips of the confrontation were being shared across platforms, with the hashtag Colbert Meltdown trending within minutes. Celebrity friends of Damon were posting messages of support, while late-night competitors watched with a mixture of schadenfreude and professional concern at the collapse of interview decorum. As the floor director counted down to return from commercial, a production assistant rushed to Colbert with a hastily printed statement. He scanned it quickly, his expression darkening before he nodded curtly. The on-air light blinked back to life, and the cameras found Colbert alone at his desk, his earlier smugness replaced by a strained professional smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, as you've seen, our interview with Matt Damon took an unexpected turn. Tonight, we'd like to apologize to Matt and to you, our viewers, for what transpired. That's not what The Late Show stands for." The words clearly weren't his own, his delivery mechanical as he read from the teleprompter. "We'll be moving directly to our musical guest tonight. Please welcome Olivia Rodrigo." The audience's applause was noticeably subdued as the cameras panned to the musical stage, capturing glimpses of worried executives huddled near the production booth. Meanwhile, Damon had already left the building, declining the network's hastily offered car service in favor of his own transportation. His phone was buzzing constantly with notifications, but he ignored it, staring out the window as New York City passed by in a blur of lights. "Where to?" his driver asked. Damon considered for a moment. "The airport. I think I've had enough of New York for now." By morning, the confrontation had become the leading entertainment story across news outlets. Video clips had been viewed millions of times, with commentators and body language experts dissecting every tense moment of the exchange. The overwhelming public sentiment favored Damon, praising his composure in the face of what many were calling an ambush interview. Colbert apology had replaced Colbert meltdown as the top trending topic after the network released an official statement expressing regret for the incident and affirming their commitment to treating guests with respect. 3 days later, Damon sat in his home office in Los Angeles, watching the numbers for The Resurgence roll in. Despite, or perhaps because of, the Colbert incident, opening weekend projections were being revised upward. His publicist had arranged a replacement appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, where the host had opened with a pointed joke about knowing how to treat longtime friends. His phone rang, displaying a New York number he didn't recognize. "Hello? Matt, it's Steven." Colbert's voice sounded different, humbled, lacking its usual performative edge. "I wanted to call personally, not through our teams." Damon said nothing, waiting. "I crossed a line," Colbert continued into the silence. "Several lines, actually. There's no excuse for how I conducted that interview." "Why did you do it?" Damon asked simply. There was a long pause before Colbert answered. "Ratings have been slipping. The network's been pressuring us to create more viral moments, more controversy. I think I lost sight of the difference between creating engaging television and just being cruel." "That's an explanation, not an excuse," Damon replied, his voice firm but not unkind. "I know. And I'm not asking for your forgiveness, just offering my apology. It was unprofessional and unfair. You deserved better." Damon considered this. "You know what bothered me most? Not the personal attacks. It was watching someone I respected become something they're not for the sake of ratings. That's not the Stephen Colbert I thought I knew." The silence on the line stretched for several seconds. "You're right," Colbert finally said. "It's not who I want to be either." A week later, Colbert opened his show with something unprecedented, a direct, unscripted apology to both Damon and his audience. No jokes, no ironic distance, just a sincere acknowledgement of his failure to uphold the standards of respectful discourse he had once prided himself on. The incident became a talking point in industry circles about the pressures of late-night television in the viral era and the costs of pursuing ratings at the expense of integrity. Several hosts adjusted their approaches in the following months, emphasizing authentic conversation over manufactured confrontation. As for Damon, the incident ultimately enhanced his reputation for professionalism. His measured response, walking away rather than escalating the situation, was praised by colleagues and fans alike. The Resurgence outperformed expectations at the box office, with several critics noting that the film's themes of maintaining dignity under pressure seemed particularly relevant in light of recent events. 6 months later, Damon was back in New York for another film premiere. His publicist handed him the final schedule for the promotional tour. "The Late Show reached out again," she said cautiously. "They're still interested if you are. New producer, new format. Colbert wants to do a joint interview with Ben, focusing on your friendship and collaborative process. No ambush questions, obviously." Damon considered this for a long moment. "Tell them I'll think about it. Not this time around, but maybe for the next project." "You sure?" "It would make for a powerful redemption narrative." Damon smiled slightly. "Some things are more important than narratives, like meaning what you say about second chances." As he looked out over the New York skyline, Damon reflected that sometimes the most compelling drama happens not on screen, but in those moments when public personas crack, to reveal the human beings beneath, flawed, complex, and occasionally capable of genuine growth.